You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amberdata. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amberdata delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amberdata eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back. It is time once again for the Crypto Rundown. Went on hiatus last week, of course, for the Memorial Day holiday. I was sick. I was struck down horribly before that. So it's been a week or two since we've been back together here on the Crypto Rundown. But I'm happy to get the band back together. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks are binging these days. Hope you're having a good trading week out there. Remember, if you want to join us for a whole bunch of exclusive goodness, including a couple of exclusive shows, live streams, a mountain of goodies from the OIC conference, including some exclusive sessions there, and a whole bunch more, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. As we learn who's joining us back on the old Crypto Rundown program today, I'm pleased to welcome back on our old pal, Mr. Greg Magadini, the Director of Derivatives from Amberdata. Mr. Greg, welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you, Mark. Happy to be here again. Always fun.
How are things going in Amberdata land these days, sir?
Lots of activity as usual. Very excited to see all the adoption in TradFi continue, to see new products such as the Solana futures on CME, and then to see more corporate treasury allocation to crypto. So the TradFi space is heating up. We're going to get that Circle IPO pretty soon. That's a very interesting development for the space. And obviously everything in CeFi land is still popping, and there's a lot of activity there too.
A lot of activity indeed, listeners. So let's dive into it. A little bit of the old Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is going on out here in the world of Bitcoin. Since our last show, it's been a couple of weeks. A lot goes on in crypto and indeed Bitcoin just intraday, let alone in a couple of weeks. So a lot of action out there. We are mostly north since our last show. On our last show, we were just a tick north of 100K. 101,863 to be precise. Coming in to start the show today, 104,513 puts us up about 2,650 handles from where we were this time last show. Of course, we did get a little higher in the interim. Looks like we topped out a little bit north of 111,000, just kissing 112 depending on the venue you're looking at out there. That was on May 22nd, so a lot's gone on since then. As Greg alluded to, a lot of action out there in the Bitcoin space. If that wasn't enough, what Greg just broke down, we also got GameStop diving in. If we needed to add a little bit more vol to the Bitcoin world and the crypto world, Greg, just putting the two names of GameStop and Bitcoin together, that should do that, sir. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, Amberdata just started covering the vol surface for GameStop precisely for this reason. So
you were just waiting for an excuse, weren't you?
Yes, absolutely.
So there you go, listeners. If that was the thing that was holding you back, if Amberdata didn't have the vol surface for GameStop, there they go. Now you literally have no excuse. Amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. Well, outside of that, shall we say, headline grabbing move, what else is catching your eye in the world of the big dog BTC right now, sir?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we noticed last week is a little bit of a pullback. So, we barely broke through to new all-time highs by maybe, almost $1,000. And then last week we had a pullback back down from 111-ish down to 105. And looking at the flows on the markets, we saw block traders starting to buy put spreads, starting to sell out of the money call spreads, really a lot of bearish flows, enough to essentially flip the weekly risk reversal back down into negative territory, meaning the puts are more expensive than the calls. I think all this stuff is just kind of normal activity. The way that Bitcoin is moving right now in this sort of low vol, essential grind higher, I think is actually constructive. I remember, I first cut my teeth trading in 2008. Nasty upside rallies are part of a bearish environment. Whereas if you see, real bull markets, call it, past 2010 all the way up to 2015 in the S&P, it's a very controlled grind higher. And I think that's what we're starting to see in Bitcoin. We're starting to see this grind higher. So this mini pullback is nothing that breaks the trend, in my opinion. And if we look at the longer dated vol surface, call it 30 days out all the way out to 6 months, you still see the risk reversal skew being biased to the upside, pricing in more upside expected value or upside vol surprises than the downside vol surprises. So I think all this stuff is constructive, and the way that I'm reading this is just a regular wiggle in the market.
Let's break down some of that vol and skew, shall we, listeners? If you were firing up the Amberdata machine, you would see on the weekly vol front coming in a little bit since our last show, which, as Greg pointed out, is not exactly earth-shaking or surprising right now. We are also heading into those traditionally quiet, less volatile summer months. That said, nothing is normal right now. One tweet, one development out of DC could really shake up the whole game. So we are still in somewhat aberrant times. But that said, seasonally, these are usually the start of somewhat quieter times, and that's being reflected on the Bitcoin vol front. Coming in our last show, we had about a 41 on the weekly vol, a little bit north of 37 right now, 37.6. If you go out to the monthly time frame, 30 days, the more standardized vol metric, listeners, we were at a 43.8, so right under a 44 on our last show. Coming into the start of the show today, 41.8, so coming in exactly 2 points on the monthly vol. And going out to where the hodlers hang out, the 6-month vol, listeners, we were at a 50.8, almost a 51 on the last show, 47.3. So again, coming back down to earth slightly, but no surprise there as we are kicking off the beginning of June as we're recording this show, listeners. Let's go out to the skew, as Greg was alluding to out there, and a little bit of a swing out there, but nothing earth-shaking out there either, with the exception maybe of the 6-month skew. We'll get there in a second. Let's go out to the weekly skew first. We were mildly optimistic on the last show, listeners, about almost 1.4. That has swung in the other direction now, negative 1.4. Again, anything plus or minus a point and change, I don't really get too excited about. Let's keep rolling out to the 30-day skew. We were mildly bullish on the last show, listeners, positive 2.3. That has swung down to about a 0.75. So again, anything within a point around the at-the-money I usually consider to be pretty flat. Greg, what did catch my eye, though, is kind of interesting. We've talked for a long time on this show about the Hodler premium, call it what you will, the long-term upside vol premium to the calls. And if you're going to trade options on Bitcoin going out any distance, the calls are traditionally going to trade at some sort of premium to the puts. That's just the way the hodlers tend to hang out. On our last show, it was about a +3, so still showing a little bit of a premium. Coming in at the start of the show today, it was almost flat, I would say, a +0.6. So that is kind of interesting to me, Greg. What are your thoughts on the fact that maybe this longer term, call it what you will, the hodler premium, the call premium, not quite there right now, sir? Are we hitting an equilibrium point for the near future?
Yeah, I think in my mind this is still an opportunity as opposed to something that is a new paradigm. So in my mind, the reason for that upside call premium versus the puts is because we've had a lot of upside surprises in crypto and Bitcoin specifically, and I don't think that narrative changes. You see this type of structure in gold where the out of the money calls will be more pricey than the out of the money puts. And to me, that structure is justified, and we see it today. And I still view Bitcoin as trading in one part as digital gold, in another part as a risk asset. But the digital gold narrative continues to heat up, and the macro landscape continues to make gold make new all-time highs. And I think it's just a matter of time until, some countries or central banks start viewing Bitcoin as digital gold. And that is an upside surprise that can really move the markets to the upside. And so I think that long-dated upside skew or calls trading at a premium versus puts is justified and should continue.
Let's get out to the land of some of the other vehicles a lot of you like to use to trade Bitcoin, which also might make for a fun crypto question of the week, folks. So if you're dabbling in a little bit of BTC right now, adding to your portfolio, what is your preferred weapon of choice right now? Are you just buying up some spot? Are you going the IBIT route? Are you going maybe BITO? Are you getting a little bit wilder out there? Maybe an MSTR, or dare I say it, an MSTU? Let us know. Maybe it'll be a fun little question of the week. So keep an eye out for that, listeners. But right now, let's go out to IBIT land, 59.40 as we kicked off the show, up about $1.40 from where it was on our last show. Obviously hanging out around 58, I should say, on our last show. The ADV, though, continuing to look strong. So that is not getting weak heading into the summer months. Nearly 500,000 contracts a day, Greg. 492 on the tape. That's up 68,000 from our last show. So folks are still slinging themselves a little bit of IBIT, Greg. No signs of weakness, sir.
Yeah, IBIT continues to be a nice barometer for the sentiment in this market. One of the best performing, if not the best performing ETF launches. You can look at the flows and see continued inflows into the ETF. And then it's one of the highest volume traded equities in terms of options. And so in my mind, this all bodes well for large participation in the space. And I think IBIT's the place to do it. If you look at the spreads, very tight, growing volumes, something like BITO, which is wide and declining volumes, really shows that the market has gravitated towards IBIT. Again, 35% of the Deribit volume in notional terms. So in my mind, this is the place to be for direct Bitcoin exposure. You mentioned MSTR and MSTU. I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit later. But for straight direct exposure to Bitcoin, I like this product, and I like it for the liquidity and the ability to trade multi-legged spreads and get in and get out and actually get some size off if you want to.
Well, there's some decent size trading today. It doesn't seem like we're going to hit that 500,000 ADV, but then again, the day is not over. About 250, about 250,000 contracts on the tape. Most options products would kill for that, but 500,000 is nothing to sneeze at. The big dog today, we got about 7,600 of the 60 calls expiring this week going up today, listeners. We're at about a 59.40 right now, so not that outlandish of a trade out there. 30-day vol, by the way, hanging out at a 41, down about 1 point from where it was on our last show. Let's go out to BITO, 21 even as we kicked off the show, down about $0.50 from where it was this time on our last program. The ADV still hanging out around 31,000. That is unchanged. So again, just showing you, everyone kind of thought once IBIT launched, it might kind of eat BITO's lunch, and we got IBIT averaging nearly 500,000 contracts a day and BITO struggling to maintain 31,000. So you can definitely see which way the market is lining up. That said, today doing about 33,000, so a little bit more active out there in BITO land today. The vol looking surprisingly low, only about a 32, but then again, a less liquid product. So read into that a little bit of a grain of salt. And let's get out to Greg's favorite product, the product for the degenerates out there, good old MSTU. Trading a 762 right now, putting up 47,000 contracts today. That's against an ADV of 64,000 out there. Greg, what's catching your eye in BITO? And maybe like a little bit of your levered BitX. That's always a fun one as well. And then, of course, for all the degens out there, yourself included, what's catching your eye in good old MSTU, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of BITO, kind of stopped paying attention to BITO. I'm a lot less interested in that product. I still like BitX. I love those 2x payout, daily rebalancing, decaying assets. I think those are always interesting to trade. And in terms of MSTR and MSTU, one of the things that we've seen is that MSTR actually started underperforming a little bit on this rally. We were at 425 on MicroStrategy or strategy now, you could call it. And now it's, call it 370. So a nice $50 drop, which is a lot steeper than the Bitcoin drop from 111 to 105. One of the things that's really interesting is that let's keep in mind that MSTR trades at a premium to net asset value. Now, the justification to this is that if your Bitcoin per share in strategy grows over time, on a long enough time scale, you might actually outperform Bitcoin because you have more Bitcoin per share. Now, one of the things I want to keep in mind here is that as Bitcoin goes up, growing the Bitcoin per share costs more in dollar terms. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And so what I actually expect is that if we actually get this mega rally in Bitcoin, MSTR, I would expect to lose some of its beta performance in the sense that as Bitcoin rallies, I would expect the net asset value premium to contract on the way up. So it would actually kind of underperform on the way up is a little bit of my thesis and my thinking here. And then on the way down, it's a pretty levered instrument. So it actually has a lot more downside potential should, things hit the fan, so to speak. So that's something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind really is MSTU. So when we look at those 2x products, let's remember, when you're modeling out 2x performance drag, on a longer time scale, the more drag there is. And then on the higher vol of the underlying asset, the more drag there is. So if you're modeling this stuff out, just in Python or whatever you want, you have to put in an assumption for volatility. And the higher your assumption, the higher the drag. So MSTU can become a really sort of interesting way to play that drag, especially if we get that outperformance in Bitcoin versus strategy. Well, now you have kind of a double whammy on the MSTU front. You have the ETF drag plus the beta underperformance from strategy as the net asset value compresses. So those are sort of trades I like to keep in the back of my mind. Nothing that I have on right now, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Something to keep in mind. So maybe not just for degens after all, Mr. Greg. And hey, if it's averaging 64,000 contracts a day, there's a few more degenerates out there than perhaps we all assumed. As we keep on rolling, listeners, it is time to explore the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe, a portion of the show where we go beyond the big dog, which is Bitcoin, except for right now where we look at everything from a market cap perspective, listeners. And on our last show, it cost you about $26 billion exactly to break into the top 10. That got you to our old pal Tron. This week, it's a little bit cheaper. You're saving some money if you want to break into the top 10. Only a mere $23.9 billion to break into the top 10. That doesn't get you to Tron anymore. That gets you to our old pal Cardano, was at the number 9 spot. Now it's taken down the number 10 spot. Tron and Cardano switching places. Tron number 9, 25.3 billion worth of market cap. Number 8, Doge, listeners, 28.8 billion worth of market cap. Number 7, it's USD coin, almost 61 billion worth of market cap. Solana at about an 80, almost an 81. Hard to read this chart sometimes, listeners. Solana at about an 81, listeners, when it comes to market cap out there. So interesting stuff on the Solana front. I see some of our chat talking about Solana right now, some riding it, some adding, some just keeping an eye on it. Solana, obviously, a big mover for a lot of you out there. Number 6, number 5, BNB, listeners, coming in at 93.25 billion. Number 4, it's XRP, 127, almost 128 billion. Don't tell our buddy Mr. Bill out there, his wife, a big fan of XRP. Number 3, it's Tether, 153 billion. Number 2, it's ETH, because of course it is, 308.6 billion. And the big dog, good old BTC, still clinging to that 2T level, if ever so slightly out there, listeners. 2 trillion worth of market cap. And now let's get to number 2. Is it still number 1 in a lot of your hearts? This has been the debate that's been raging for a while, is exactly what the heck is going on with ETH, just taking body blows and body blows and body blows. And then over the last month, ETH outperforming most other assets to the upside. So having quite the resurgence, listeners. We were on our last show, we were at a 24.57. It's up about actually exactly 100 handles from our last show, 25.57 as we kicked off the show. We topped out right around 27.50, 27.60. That was in late May, May 29th out there. So obviously coming back down off those highs, but still north of that 24.5 level we were at on the last show. Is that it, Mr. Greg? Is it time for the ETH holders to celebrate? They had a heck of a month. I don't know if it's enough to really turn around a terrible year so far, sir.
Right. There's still a lot of ground to make up. I do think ETH is, once again, interesting. If we look at just dealer positioning on Deribit, dealers are short a lot of gamma above 2,700 and short a lot of gamma sort of below 2,200. This current area, call it the 25.50 zone, is a long gamma zone. So if we can break out of here, theoretically, there's a little bit of a scramble, whether to the upside or the downside. One of the things that's really interesting is if we look at the term structure curvature, contango versus backwardation, ETH is actually in slight backwardation, whereas Bitcoin is in pretty solidly contango land. Typically, those things move in lockstep. So it's kind of interesting to see a little bit of the pricing reflect maybe a continuation of this ETH outperformance in terms of volatility. And so I think if the market breaks higher, that bodes pretty well for ETH. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that we're seeing a nice recovery in risk assets as a whole. So, tech stocks, equities as a whole have had a nice recovery. While ETH is more of a risk play. It's more of a crypto tech play in my mind, as opposed to a digital gold play like Bitcoin. So if risk comes really back into the market, and we've seen this in past bull markets, call it 2017, 2016, things like that, altcoins tend to outperform in those types of environments if the driver is risk on. And so I think there's a little bit of that picture mixed together. So let's see what happens. But ultimately, the way that things are priced right now, the way that I'm reading it, is that the market is anticipating ETH to continue to lead.
I like that. The gamma zone. I can hang out in the gamma zone for a little bit, Mr. Greg. Probably wouldn't be the worst to have a little bit of gamma in your back pocket. Certainly this last month, you're not mad if you were long a little bit of gamma and ETH just roaring back to life. They said, hey, hold my beer, Bitcoin and Solana. See if you could do this. So a few more months like that, we might all be raging ETH bulls again, Mr. Greg. But yes, you in the gamma zone right now in ETH? Listeners, hit us up. Let us know. Some of our chat, I'm looking at our chat. Looks like we still got some Solana and ETH players. Not a lot of BTC. A few of them out there. A lot of them playing IBIT as well, and BITO. If you are playing Bitcoin, it seems like these days. But are you hanging out in the gamma zone in ETH? Hit us up, listeners. Let us know. Let's go out. Let's see what's going on in that zone in ETH right now. Let's start on the vol front. Again, things looking a little bit quieter since our last show. We were at a 78 on the weekly vol front last week, listeners. Last show, I should say, 78.1. Coming back to earth, 66.75. Still more volatile than a lot of the assets you're going to look at out there, but getting a little bit quieter for ETH. Same deal on the 30-day vol front, north of a 70 on our last show, 70.5. Coming back down to 66.2. And on the hodler front, 67.3 on the 6-month vol last show, 65.6. Greg, anything catching your eye as we're looking at the gamma zone from a strictly vol perspective here in ETH, sir?
Yeah, from a vol perspective, again, I think that term structure is pretty interesting. I think if you look at the big expiration, which is this June quarterly contract, we're going to see, it bodes well for seeing how this month plays out. There's a lot of outstanding OI. One of the things, and this is a little bit unrelated to the gamma zone, but to keep in mind for ETH, is that we're starting to see chatter of a spot Ethereum ETF that distributes staking rewards. That's a little bit of a game changer in my mind. It makes it a lot more interesting to own this asset because now it's a yield-bearing asset. So institutions and stuff like that typically like that type of dividend. But the other thing that's really interesting is if you're looking at the futures market, if you're looking at the Bitcoin futures basis and the ETH futures basis, right now they're trading in lockstep about 6% for each. But the staking rewards of Ethereum are 3%. So if you could buy the staked spot ETF and sell the CME future against it, you're getting 6% on the basis side of the trade and 3% on the yield side of the trade or on the staking side. So you're getting net 9%. In my mind, people will put that on and we should see a divergence or a repricing of the ETH basis to reflect that inherent yield. Otherwise, there's just kind of free money on the table on a delta neutral basis that it exceeds what you can get in Bitcoin. And so I think that's a trade that's going to be starting to come online pretty soon, and people should pay attention to that.
Yeah, that has been fascinating to hear the talk of the ETH ETF that includes, you're right, the staking rewards. Because without that, it is a much less sexy product for a lot of people out there. One of the big attractive portions of ETH is the yield. So you have to find some way to incorporate that into the ETF. And if they can do that, you're right, that opens up some interesting opportunities on the basis side and everything else. And for a lot of people who are maybe on the sidelines, maybe they don't like what they're seeing out there from a product perspective. Maybe they just don't want to own spot. They don't want to go through the hassle of staking it themselves, then having to unstake it. Maybe the ETH ETF, if it includes staking, could be an interesting development. We're all waiting for that, listeners. As we're waiting for that, let's check out what the Skew is showing us right now. It was kind of flat on the weekly Skew front on our last show. That has swung mildly negative right now, a -1 on the weekly side. Again, not that surprising. That's mostly flat, and we have kind of come off the highs. So that's pretty much what you would expect. Going out to the monthly Skew, we were mildly negative on the show, negative about 0.7. This week, it has swung to a positive 0.7. So again, anything hanging out in that 1 point range either way. Not much going on there. Going out to the hodler side, is there still a hodler premium to a little bit of the long-term calls, listeners, in ETH? The answer right now is yes, even though it is getting smaller. It was almost 4 on our last show, positive 3.65. Coming in the start of the show today, it's a positive 2. But Greg, at least you can say it still exists, where right now it's an open question whether that call premium exists in Bitcoin. What's catching your eye on the ETH Skew front, sir?
Yeah, I think call premium makes sense for crypto as a whole, but I think it makes particular sense for altcoins such as Ethereum and Solana. And the reason why that is, for Ethereum specifically, I mean, you have a pretty beat up asset with, relative underperformance for quite a few years. The potential for a catch up trade is on the table, and therefore upside vol from owning the call should trade at a premium because you can actually get that payout. And as we just touched on, maybe the staking spot ETF is a catalyst for more adoption. Maybe that helps the catch up trade. Maybe some of the fundamental reasons, the infighting at the Ethereum Foundation or things like that, maybe that gets resolved. There's a lot of open questions that could find resolution, and that could be a catalyst to finally catch up. And there's a lot of ground to be made up on the ETH Bitcoin chart. And so, ETH having a moment that rallies it all the way up to 4,000, that wouldn't be crazy, and the world keeps spinning, and that's not a very paradigm shifting thing. But if that does happen and you own some calls, that's quite the payout. So I definitely think it's pretty justified in that sense.
Well, Greg, I will say you have inspired our chat. They want now we listen to the Danger Zone a lot on our VolView show. They want a song of the Gamma Zone sung to the tune of the Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins. So maybe we'll have to get AI on that, Greg, for your next appearance. The Gamma Zone. What do you think? You get behind that?
Yeah, 100%. That sounds
All right.
great.
Maybe one of our listeners will do that for us. Reach out to your favorite AI of choice, listeners. See if you can make that happen. Gamma Zone sung to the tune of Danger Zone by an AI Kenny Loggins. I wouldn't mind listening to that. That could be kind of fun. Let's see what else is fun out here in the rest of the altcoin universe this week, listeners. Solana looking juicy on our last show, north of 170, a 171, almost 171 and a half. Coming back down to earth slightly this show, 154.90, down about 16 and a half handles since our last show. I see some of our chat debating whether they want to nibble and add more. Some of them saying yeah, others saying they already bought some around this level the last time we dipped, so it has to dip lower. What is your level where if you're long Solana, maybe you'd want to dip and add some more, listeners? Hit us up, let us know. XRP on our last show, $2.50. Today, $2.18, so coming back down to earth a little bit, down about 36 cents. From our last show. Doge on our last show, 22.8 cents, 19.3%, 19.3 cents, I should say. So down about 3.5 cents from our last show, listeners. A Litecoin, 101, almost 60, 101.57. Litecoin coming crashing back to earth as well. 89, pretty much exactly, down about 12.5 handles from where it was last show. Let's run through a few others and we'll see what Greg has burning a hole in his wallet this week. Cardano, 80.4 cents, 67.9 cents now, so down about 12.5 cents. Polkadot, 507 last show, 405, down $1.02 from our last show. So they're coming for Polkadot. Shiba Inu listeners, cover your ears. I know there's a few of Shiba holders in our pro. 15 or million zeros, I should say. 157 on our last show. This week 129. So unfortunately, you're giving up the lug nuts on the hubcaps of those Shiba Lambos. That said, Mr. Greg, sir, anything burning a hole in your wallet this week you want to share with the folks?
Well, in terms of altcoins, I think one thing that's interesting is Solana. I've talked about Solana on the show before. I still think it has a lot of wild card potential. If I look at the volatility of Solana right now, call it 75-ish. Depending on what maturity you're looking at, that's pretty on the lower side of the range for Solana. I mean, Solana can easily get to 134 vol, 120 vol, that type of area. So any sort of, resurgence in adoption of Solana or enthusiasm or change in sentiment probably gets Solana quickly to higher levels. If we look at dealer positioning, dealers are short a lot of volatility around 200, 220, 260. So, really breaking through those levels could be quite the move. So if we continue to see the risk on sentiment, the Web3 tech play for crypto continuing to gain adoption, I think Solana's got a lot of potential upsides. It's a much smaller market cap than Bitcoin and ETH. So from that positioning, it can move a lot. So that's something to keep in mind. But the other thing that keeps me very excited is the Circle IPO. I'm really curious to see how that plays out. I think Circle or stablecoins in general, stablecoin companies are kind of big buyers of government debt, and in the case of Circle, U.S. Treasury debt. And so that is a context right now where who's buying U.S. Treasury debt is a little bit in question in the macro land. And so if Circle is one of those big adopters of, using the stable coin assets or the actual dollars backing the stable coins and sticking those in treasuries, wow, that sounds like a good friendly environment from a regulatory standpoint. There's a nice incentive there to be friendly, so to speak. And it's kind of a neutral pure play on the adoption of the space in general. So I'm very curious to see how that plays out. And I think it's going to be an interesting equity.
Yes, speaking of equities, you're right. They're targeting quite a bit, nearly $1 billion from that IPO in Circle. I did also notice, Greg, some people got a little bit ahead of themselves and they drove up the wrong Circle equity today, 1,600%. They're trading the wrong one.
Oh, no.
So a little bit of action, and I guess there's a CRCL that they were looking at. I'll have to go look and see exactly what the ticker was. But yeah, somebody out there, or a lot of somebody's, Greg, were buying the wrong Circle, up 1,600%. So I guess traders of that one were pretty happy out there today. What are you folks happy about, listeners? In fact, speaking of you folks, let's get to a real quick crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, Mr. Greg, as we were talking during the show, we put out a fun little crypto question of the week, a poll for our audience, gauging their sentiment to back what we were talking about in the Bitcoin breakdown, I should say, about your preferred vehicle for trading a little bit of the old BTC. We asked you quite simply, what's your preferred way to trade Bitcoin in your portfolio? Are you just holding up, gobbling up all the spot? Or you like to play a little bit of IBIT right now? Or you like to play some BITO? Or maybe you're going the other route. And there's a lot of others we could throw in there. MSTR, pick your poison out there, listeners. A lot of interesting ways to go. Mr. Greg, what is your answer to that? What is your preferred way if you want to gobble up some Bitcoin in the old portfolio right now? You going one of these vehicles, or is there an other you want to add to the list? And then B, more importantly, which way you think our audience is going?
Yeah, I think IBIT is to play. If you have a clear Bitcoin opinion, and you don't want to, muddy up your opinion with tracking errors or anything like that, Bitcoin is definitely to play. IBIT is definitely to play for Bitcoin. I think the audience is going to agree with me, but I think there's also a pretty big following of MicroStrategy. So I would say IBIT is number one and MSTR is number two.
Let's find out, shall we, Mr. Greg? All right, right now, this just went live a few minutes ago, listeners, so this will be live all week, so if you're listening on the podcast, you folks can play along as well. And right now, Greg, it's still popping around all over the place, but right now, exactly 50% of them, Greg, they just want to add it to their portfolio. They're going the spot route. They don't want to mess around with any sort of other issues. IBIT now and the other, so MSTR and others, are neck and neck with about 25% each, Greg. So they're slugging it out for second place. Again, this just went live a few minutes ago. I expect that to swing all over. Getting back to your point, though, Greg, you said you're not really paying attention to BITO. In the early voting, 0% for BITO, Greg. That would have been dominating our tape just a year or two ago. So I guess play a small violin for BITO, Mr. Greg. So interesting stuff out there. Circle IPO going to be a fun one to watch. And if folks want to watch all this stuff play out, perhaps with a little bit of analytics to arm their trading, Greg, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, you can access all these charts, all the visuals, look at the gamma profiles. Just go to pro.amberdata.io, sign up with an email. It's completely free. You get full RAIN access, and you can check out all the charts and all the volatility surfaces.
There you go. Check it out for yourselves, listeners. Amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. Now with GameStop, right, Greg? So there you go. You got to add that to the marketing.
Yes. Now with GameStop.
Amberdata, now with GameStop. The one piece you've been missing, Greg. There we go. Check it out there as well, listeners. And let us know your thoughts in our poll and some of the other. I see a lot of you folks are debating which crypto you're slinging out there. Hit us up in the Pro. If you want to join us in the Pro, only one place to go, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. We will reveal the winner of the May Pro Trading Crate coming up on good old Options Bootcamp with our buddy Mr. P coming up on Wednesday, so stay tuned for that. If you didn't get your name in the hat by the end of May, you missed out on that one, listeners, but you can join up right now and get your name in the hat for the June drawing. Trust me, you want to win at least one of those in your trading career. That's going to do it for us on the network today. Back again tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week with our usual array of content till we're back next Monday, another episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amberdata. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amberdata delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amberdata eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.